What's been some of the highs and lows of 2009 for you?
Well, 2009's been a great year. I mean, first and foremost, we welcomed the arrival of our son in April, Austin James. So straight away, it was going to be a Hall of Fame year, regardless of everything else. That was very exciting for my wife and I, and our daughter Lucy. But from a professional standpoint, it's been a great year. I think I've won 6 or 7 races out of the 10 I've done. I've won 5 70.3 or half Ironman races out of the 6 I've contested, and obviously the season culminated with defending my title in Hawaii, and that was an extremely satisfying moment. Just to win is one thing, but to defend, I was only, I think, the 4th person in the history of the race to defend the title, and become one of only a handful of multiple winners there. So personally and professionally, 2009 was a great year for us.
Any lows that you can identify?
You know what? Not really. It was a great year, I think. Nothing that comes to mind, which is unusual because sport is tough, like business and like life sometimes, and you have peaks and troughs. And fortunately, this year seemed to go pretty well. It went as planned. I won the first 2 or 3 races I did. And some biggies as well. Raced in Singapore, raced in Australia, a lot in the US, and really just went on a tear this year from a triathlon perspective, which was great. And the focus was always on Kona, but there weren't really any down I guess troughs as such, but which is unusual because that's usually the case. But I think I prepared very well. I had a great support network, starting with my wife and my family, and she's very organised. She keeps me on track, not only with the training, but from the other responsibilities that come with being a professional athlete. And I think part of the success we had was attributable to the fact that she just took a lot of the stress out of it for me. All I had to do was be a dad and be an athlete. A lot of the business side of being a professional athlete she dealt with. The logistics of my travel, my racing schedule, planning all of that, the accommodation and so forth. And really, it was kept very simple for me. Try and be a good dad and try and be a good athlete, and I think that's why the year was so great. And my wife, I mean, she's been with me since the start, and as you'd know, even in an individual sport, it's not really an individual sport. There's a lot of people behind the scenes who do a lot of work and usually get little of the credit. But I think that's one thing I've learned, to be consistent and to be competitive. You need great people around you, starting with family, training partners, coaches, sponsorship relationships, the people you align with in that regard. It all adds up to point you in one direction. So I've been very lucky, been blessed really with the relationships I've had with companies within the industry and with training partners. And 09 was a great year. Can't really think of any troughs, to be honest. So hopefully that trend continues next year.
Were you especially pleased with one discipline or another that you made big improvements on this year?
To be brutally honest, I was pleased with the whole thing. I mean, my MO at the start of every year is to try and improve on all 3 disciplines. And I think you need that. I think if you feel you've reached your potential or reached that ceiling or that limit, it'd be hard to get motivated. And for me, a lot of the motivation comes with the challenge of not just trying to win races. It's more about trying to improve and maximize my performance. That's where the fun and the challenge is for me, and that's where the motivation. People often say, how do you stay motivated to keep coming back year after year? Well, that is the motivation. I want to improve on everything. Certainly you have strengths and weaknesses, and I mean, to win the really big races in our sport, you can't have a weak discipline. You need to be good in all 3 disciplines. And I mean, that's always my focus at the beginning of every year, when I'm structuring my training and periodizing things and scheduling the season. The whole focus is to improve on everything, on every aspect, which is not always possible, but I think that's the goal you need to set. And when I feel I'm not interested in chasing that, I guess, pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, I think the motivation will wane, but there's been no sign of that. It's still exciting for me at the start of every year to plan the next 12 months and to really get after it hard.
And what are some of your goals for 2010? Have you started to think about that?
I have. I haven't set a race schedule yet, but I've got a fair idea of which races I'm going to be doing. And the goal is always to be very consistent, to turn up to 11 or 12 races with very good shape. Obviously it's sport, so you can't guarantee anything, but I'd like to guarantee that I'll be in great shape every time I race and put in that consistent level of performance, which really that's what my goal is every year. The consistency that I've been able to achieve is, I think, is what I'm most proud of. Not the wins, but that consistent level of high performance each time I race. So that's a goal, and I mean, an obvious one is obviously, October, going back to try and defend again, do the three-peat, as they say, and there'll be a lot of pressures. There always is, though. I mean, going in the first time, there was expectation from myself and from external sources as well. I was the reigning half Ironman world champion, so I think there was a little bit of expectation to translate that into a good race in Kona, and I was able to do that and get a second. And then obviously going back the year after that, you've been second the year before, so I mean, people consider you as a contender, and I saw myself as a legitimate contender as well. So in my mind, there was the pressure to surpass that performance. That didn't mean I had to win to make it a successful campaign, but I wanted to surpass the performance of 07. And then this year it was another dynamic again, going as defending champion. There was, a lot of media, sponsorship commitments, and the pressure that comes with that, and the time commitments that come with that. Those constraints on your time where it may eat into your training. So I felt a lot of pressure to really get my time management skills in order this year, in order that my training didn't suffer. And I'm sure it'll be the same next year. So, I mean, a goal is to manage that well and really be in my best shape in October. As I've said consistently, I don't have to win for it to be a success. I just have to walk away with a performance that I'm very proud of. And for me, that will be a success.